Now, what you see here is a sample of the brick dungeons using mold number 343. This is just a basic brick dungeon that I've put together. And the whole purpose of the video that I'm showing here is trying to come up with an easy way to wash these that doesn't take a lot of work, that gives you a really nice look. This ink wash is very easy to do as long as you have the materials for it. It's basically an undercoat of white, and it's 2 different washes on top, and you don't have to be careful at all. You just mop up your drips and you're done, and it will come out, the brick will come out like this. Now, I do have to tell you that the way I did this on the dungeon doesn't work because I put it everywhere. I was hoping to make a dungeon that you could just assemble the whole thing, wash it a couple times and be done, and make it nice and easy. It is not going to work out that way. And you'll see, you know, when I put this together, if you paint everything with this sort of wash, you just get a massive brown. So that's not going to work. I was hoping to have this done by Gen Con 2017, but it looks like I'm not going to have it done by then. So I at least wanted to give you a preview of what the walls are going to look like. Now, when I actually do this, I'm going to have to paint the floor a different color and then glue the walls on afterwards. The other things I'm going to have to change or not do as much of this up and down across the top. Basically, the open areas here with the gravel and debris, just even on a straight wall, is enough to make the top look fairly good. But this brick dungeon is really going to be a jumping off point for a whole bunch of projects I want to do if I get the combination of floor and walls correct. So with the floor change, with the wall tops changed, I think I can add in steel girders, steel beams. I can do wooden elements like bridges and tables, mad scientist tables, you know, with wires and electrodes. I think I can do sewers, you know, in there with the sewage flowing in there. I think I can do prisons, dungeons, steel gates, all kinds of things. I think this brick has got a lot of potential. A lot of potential to make some really nice, really cool stuff. But just not in the form that I have it here right now. I'll probably, you know, maybe take a section of this or two to Gen Con so you can see close up what the brick washes look like. But just know this all-in-one painted thing just isn't going to work. Anyway, what follows are the recipes for the ink washes on this so you can actually get this kind of result on your own. Well, I thought I might share some, you know, thoughts about what I'm doing here. I'm trying to come up with colors that are going to work for the brick. So what I've done is I've actually had several different types of paints and ink washes and things to try to get the bricks to come out right. And right now I have not really found the answer at all. You know, what I'll do is I'll try different things and I'll write how many parts of each, and then I'll label it with a letter. And then when I paint it over it, you know, you put the letter down on the bottom of the piece here, and so you know what it is you painted. And it's slow work because you have to let stuff dry and come back to it and try it again and try to find a product that's easy to get a hold of, that everybody can get a hold of, that's not horribly expensive. And anyway, so I have not figured it out yet. Now in a few minutes I'm going to show you what the exact recipe to these washes are. But first I want to show you how this goes on. This piece is undercoated in white, and I'm just going to take my first wash that's mixed up here, and I'm even using a brush that's kind of a stiff bristled brush. But what you're going to do is you're just going to not be careful, you're just going to paint this on. Okay? So I am just going to show you what the consistency of this wash is like. Now you'll probably notice that this wash isn't anything like a Games Workshop wash that you use on miniatures. You're going to notice that it's a much thicker wash, and that's on purpose because for this first coat I want to apply color to it. So just go ahead, and you don't have to be careful. After you get it, of course you're going to paint the back and the sides and everything else. Then scrape your brush out. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take on the side of the cup here, I'm going to scrape out the excess from the brush. And then I'm just going to suck up any of the excess wash that's on the surface. And I've got this mixture specifically mixed to get rid of brush marks. Okay, let's soak some of that up. Let's put it out here. And then let's soak it up. Now if there's any spots like you see you got kind of a dark ridge on the side here, just kind of mop that up. Soak up any spots, and that's pretty much it. Okay, now this is what the piece looks like after the ink washes dry. Now we're going to apply the second wash, and you can see that this is a little it's just a little greener. It's a little more neutral than the first wash, and it's also thinner. So we're going to just put this on. We're not going to be very careful, and this is going to tone down that bright orange a little bit, and it's also going to really enhance the deep cracks. And once again, once you just put it on like that, I just kind of slopped it on, and clean out your brush or just scrape the excess off, and then wipe up the puddles. So I'm just going to soak up the puddles out of the bottom corner here, up the side, scrape it out, get that excess off of there, and then get the excess off of here. And that's it. We are done with the painting of this. I just want to be sure to get the excess off so it doesn't pool up. And this won't pool on top of the bricks as much as the first color did because it's thinner. It's a thinner wash. So that's what it is with the second one. And of course we will let it dry, and you can have a good idea of how it looks with the second. Okay, now this is what the wall looks like when it's dry. Let me get kind of closer to it. It's got both colors of ink on it, the first and the second. And on the back, what I did is I painted it halfway. You can see the right half is what it looks like with both colors. The left half is just with the first color of ink on its own. So you can kind of see what difference it does there. And moving it around in the light, you can kind of see that this is a matte finish. It's not a glossy finish. There's maybe a slight sheen to it, but not that much. Now there are 4 different products I'm going to use to make these washes. Most of these are Liquitex products, and you can probably find a comparable brand that'll do the same job. The first one is Matte Fluid Medium. Matte means that it won't be glossy, it'll be a matte finish. Fluid means that it's fairly liquid. It's probably kind of like milk or heavy cream. And then medium basically mean it's a glue that will hold the pigment together. The second element we're going to use is acrylic craft tube paints. Now, I would not use Walmart craft acrylic paint. I would use the artist tube paints. They're more expensive, but they have better pigment and they will give you better color. And you also need it to be thicker in order for it to flow like we want to on the wall. The third element we need is India ink. And there are several different colors of this. I don't really care what this brand is. But the reason we use inks is because it adds a high concentration of pigment and it still keeps the mixture thin. The final and one of probably the most important elements, I didn't realize, this is called Slow-Dri fluid retarder. In other words, it's fluid. Basically, it's like water. This is basically like water. And it's a retarder, and it keeps the paint from skinning up and drying on you so that you've got time to actually work it around the piece and get it to flow. Now the recipe for my brick color, at least that I'm going to use on this dungeon, is going to be as follows. We are going to have 2 parts of matte fluid medium, 1 part of red oxide acrylic artist tube paint, 1 part sepia India ink, and 2 parts of the Slow-Dri fluid retarder. So here's what we're going to do. I've got a set of measuring, and this is what I think this is like a half teaspoon. I'm going to make enough just to do a test to make sure that everything flows correctly. And I suggest that you do the same because you may have a different brand of paint, or even the same brand of paint may be a little thicker depending on what batch it happens to be. So 2 parts of the matte fluid medium. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to pour it in here, and there we go. I'm going to pour that in. There's 1 part matte fluid medium, and we'll do it again. Okay, and there we got 2 parts. Alrighty, and the next thing we're going to have is 1 part of red oxide. So I'm going to open this up. And I have found if you do the matte fluid medium first, it's easier to measure this because, this is thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze this out of the tube here, And I'm going to take a good guess at what that's going to be that would fill up this half teaspoon here. And then, since I did the matte fluid medium first, it just kind of drops right out of there. So that's kind of handy for mixing. We're also going to need 1 part of sepia ink, and a lot of times this ink will come in these nice little bottles that you can kind of squeeze out and kind of put in there. After a while you'll get to the bottom of the bottle and it'll be kind of hard to get to, so I'm just going to pour this stuff straight out of the bottle here. And I'm going to use 1 part of the sepia ink. Let's put that in there. And now I need 2 parts of the Slow-Dri fluid retarder. And like I said, this pours kind of like water. Okay, so there's 1 right there, and there's 2, just like that. Okay, be sure to wipe out your thing here. I'll just wipe it off with a paper towel, kind of clean that off, and then you're going to mix it up. Now, this stuff probably would have mixed up a little easier if I had mixed these 2 up first and then added the liquid components, because sometimes this red oxide is a little bit hard to get to mix. So you're going to mix it up, and I'm probably going to have to stir it here probably for a few minutes to get this. It started looking brown, now it's starting to look a little more red. Okay, and what you want to do is, as you're mixing this up, I'm using these little white cups from Walmart. So what you can do is kind of pour it up against the side and pour it back. And I don't know if you can see the side of the cup. Do you see these speckles on the side of the cup? You see those speckles there? Those speckles are actually unmixed of the red oxide paint. You don't want speckles, because if you got speckles in it, it means that your mixture isn't mixed up all the way. To mix the second ink, what we're going to do is we're going to have 1 part of the matte fluid medium. We're going to have 2 parts of the sepia ink. I'm just going to pour from the bottle here. There's 1 part. There's 2 parts. And we're going to have 1 part of the Slow-Dri. Here we go. And that's it. That is our second wash. Let's clean this little thing off of here. And then we'll just take and mix this up. And this will mix up really easily because you're only mixing ink wash in with these other things. Now, if you're experimenting on your own, I strongly suggest that you, on these little cups, you take a marker and you write what you did. You know, I've got 2 of the matte fluid here. I've got 1 part of the green and 1 part yellow ink and 2 parts of the Slow-Dri. And I've labeled this with a big letter A on the side. And then, of course, on my bottom of my thing here, I've got a big letter A on the bottom, too. And I'll do the same with the ink wash that goes over the top. It's a good idea to do this. You know, on mine, I've gone through, you know, the alphabet twice here. You never really know what's going to happen, because you might try once like, oh, that's terrible, and you'll throw it to the side. And then you'll come back and put a different color in, but just say, oh, what the heck, let's throw this other color on it. And it will look spectacular, and you go, oh my God, what was this that I put down under here? I don't remember. You know, always have a record of what you've done, and that way you'll remember and you'll be able to repeat the same happy accident that happened before.